Sometimes you have to be really, really careful with the team when they start getting that feeling of almost inevitability about them, that feeling of destiny, like almost that they're entitled to make it to and win the Super Bowl this year. And it's an important lesson, right? You can speculate on a lot of things, but ultimately you've got to play the games. And maybe there are reasons you haven't made it to the big game before and will continue to not do so. And I'm not saying this to be on some type of pedestal to just be preaching down at everybody else. It's also, frankly, a reminder for myself, hey, life is a continual learning journey, right? It should be. When you're not learning, you're dying. It's that simple. And when it came to the Bills, I must confess that to me, I certainly looked at them as the team I expected to represent the Super Bowl, the AFC in the Super Bowl. I absolutely did. Because I had fully bought into hook, line, and sinker. Like, I've been a Josh Allen fan since day one, right? Like, that's actually one I can hang my hat on and be proud of with respect to how well he's panned out in the National Football League. He was my QB1 in 2018, for example. So, seeing him become the franchise dude and then seeing how he played in that divisional round game against the Chiefs, I could say he could go toe-to-toe with Mahomes. It wasn't Josh Allen's fault that the frickin' Bills lost. It was that damn top-rated defense under Leslie Frazier screwing the pooch and allowing the Chiefs to move into field goal range in 13 seconds to send it to overtime. Like, they were this close. So you could be forgiven, myself included, for saying, I think the Bills can get back to that spot, beat the Chiefs if needed, and make it to the Super Bowl. Especially when you look at the offseason signing of Von Miller, you're saying, hey, this is a team that felt like they needed to get better in the trenches on defense, and they certainly did that in the offseason. Von Miller was just one representation of that. And you say, man, this is a guy got traded in midseason in 2021 to the Rams, helped them win a Super Bowl. This is the impact player, the difference maker in the playoffs that they're going to need to help put them over the hump. So yeah, I was totally bought in. And in general, even with some kind of questionable moments here and there that will happen throughout the course of a regular season, was feeling really, really good about the Bills still. Just did not feel any major reasons to totally abandon ship on them. When I'm looking at them with 2 games left to go in the regular season, they're 12-3. You forgive me for thinking that this was still going to be a team that would go through everybody in the AFC, make it to the Super Bowl, and perhaps win the Super Bowl. Yeah, you forgive me for feeling that way. Because that's certainly the way I was still feeling about them. And then we ultimately got to the Monday night game against the Cincinnati Bengals, the game that wasn't, and the Damar Hamlin situation. And what's really fascinating about that moment is, I don't give a fuck what Troy Vincent or anybody in that league office said. They absolutely know goddamn good and well they were trying to force those players to go back and play that game. I will always give props to Zach Taylor and Sean McDermott saying, no, we're not doing this, man. We're going to listen to our players. They don't want to do this. We're not going to do it, and we just refuse to do it. No matter how much the NFL tries to spin it. But what a surreal environment that Monday night. What a weird, strange place and world and moment in time that was. You literally saw live on television a man die before your eyes and be brought back to life. Like, that is a triggering, traumatic type of experience. So you could only imagine how triggering and traumatic and impactful that could be for the Buffalo Bills, their players, the locker room, the vibe, the culture that they had in place for this season. And even if you say, well, Damar Hamlin made it out of it okay and he was able to be around, man, you cannot pretend like that doesn't have any impact on you whatsoever. Like, I remember as a freshman in high school, like, I'm just a little teeny runt and shit, but my cross-country team, I realized different sport here, but I had a teammate whose dad used to run with the team all the time. I'll omit the name here because that's not important, but the context is, the kid was a senior, his dad would run with the team every Sunday night at the Forest Preserve, like, everybody would run there. And the dad would usually break off, because he was in his late 40s and in great shape. He would break off and run a little bit more. And he did that one Sunday night, and he wouldn't come back in his normal time, like a half hour later. Where the fuck's he at? and go out and look for him, and he was dead on the trail. His heart had given out, basically exploded in his chest, not to be too graphic here, but he died. And that was early on in the season. So for these guys that were a really good team, like the juniors and senior group that year in 95, like they were a really good squad, and they had aspirations for making it to state, and they ultimately did. But that next month to 6 weeks, like it was a mental struggle and challenge for those guys. Because this was somebody that they knew for several years, and, their teammate was negatively impacted. They were also negatively impacted, and it was also doing the thing that they were doing. I bring that story up just to point to, I've seen, like, how that could impact a team. And while they ultimately got right, by the time you got to mid to late October, you started getting to conference and regionals and sectionals. They got it right, but it was a bit of a lost season in some ways before that moment, because some of those guys were just never right again. Because their head wasn't in it quite the same. Their heart wasn't in it quite the same. So I could certainly envision and understand that may have taken place for the Buffalo Bills. It's hard to quantify that stuff. It's hard to prove it. But seeing a somewhat similar experience in a different way, I could understand it happening. Because while this Bills team went on and beat the Dolphins in the wild card round, they just all around had a really bad performance against the Bengals, which led to their season ending in very disappointing fashion. Like, their defense wasn't good, Josh Allen wasn't good, that offense wasn't good. Like, all around team effort, they stunk that day. And you could say, well, what would have happened if you didn't have that drama of a few weeks before? Maybe the outcome's different, but maybe it's not. But I'd have to imagine, like, maybe it would have been a little bit different, but maybe it wouldn't have been, because, you talk about their big offseason addition was Von Miller. He had torn up his knee, several weeks before that, so he wasn't even going to be a factor or consideration here. So all in all, a season that looked like it could be something really special for the Buffalo Bills ultimately ended up not being, and now you're at a spot where you're going to be over the salary cap. You got some notable free agents such as Jordan Poyer and Tremaine Edmonds, so there's a chance that some of your core roster is not going to be around in 2023. The Bills are in a questionable spot here. And now they've got a whole offseason to get themselves right and get prepared again. But this may have been their best opportunity. Who knows? Because we all know that AFC is shaping up like it's going to be a real dogfight for years to come. As we know, the Mahomes and the Chiefs are no punks. Burrow and the Bengals certainly are no punks. You got Herbert there with the Chargers, Lawrence with the Jaguars. And that doesn't count any other teams that you could throw into that possible mix as well. It's not going to be an easy road in the AFC. This may have been the best opportunity. It may not have been, but it absolutely could have been. So I know for the Bills Kingdom, or not Bills Kingdom, I'm sorry, for Bills Nation, it had to be a disappointing end to a very interesting, drama-filled season. And they have to hope that 2023 is going to be better. But Bills Mafia, I don't know if it will be, quite honestly. We'll see.